Terrifying Ways to Go, Episode 18, Brett Morrow, Cured in Place. So back in November of 2017, the then 22-year-old had been repairing a 24-inch wide sewer line by way of cured in place piping, or CIPP, which for those of you who don't know is basically a cloth-like sleeve forced through a pipe via compressed air or, in some cases, water. A chemical within this material, known as styrene, will then begin to harden up, essentially becoming the new inside wall of said pipe. Well, as this material is making its way from one manhole to another, the process comes to a complete stop as it has become snagged on something roughly 30 feet inside. It was at this point Brett climbed the 20 feet down into this manhole and began making his way towards the blockage. Before too long, he is now pushing and beating on the end of this thing in an effort to get it moving once again. However, unbeknownst to Brett, the material is now bunching up behind him as well, all the while becoming more and more solidified the more time he spends inside, effectively sealing him inside the pipe. Now, what's not made clear from any of the reporting about this incident is whether or not another individual had been inside that manhole watching Brett as this all went down. What we do know is that upon his discovery, they still had a slight visual on his boots and that they could still communicate with him, meaning he was still conscious and fully aware of the situation at hand. But unfortunately, the lining had solidified so quickly, they just simply didn't have any of the tools capable of cutting it out. Emergency services were then notified, and they would spend the next 4 hours relentlessly cutting away at this material, climbing back out of the pipe, pulling it out, climbing back in, so on and so forth. Well, at some point during this process, they lose communication with Brett, and he has stopped moving altogether. And unfortunately, by the time they were able to pull him out, he had long since passed away. Here's what went down. That compound, styrene, began pooling up and evaporating inside this pocket, and it was due to this and a lack of oxygen that would cause Brett to pass out and drown in a roughly 3-inch puddle that had formed in the bottom of the pipe. Benchmark Construction, the company at fault, will pay out roughly $55,000 in fines in accordance with a $3 million wrongful death lawsuit to the family of Brett Morrow, making this incident one of the most